Oh, okay. I'll set it.
Um, Hi everybody, my name's Eddy still, addict alcoholic.
Hi, Eddie.
Um, so my sobriety date is January 15th, 2011. So just a couple of weeks I'll become a teenager. Um, but yeah, this, like Chris's story, this was not my first crack at sobriety. Um, but growing up, it I also didn't necessarily. I didn't come from like a broken household. I mean, I can't blame it on anything that happened with my family or my parents. I had two very loving parents. I mean, we weren't rich; we were making it through, but um, it was my dad was also military. Of course, him and I butted heads growing up. Um, but now, of course, as an adult, I look back and because him and I were exactly alike, no kid would ever admit that. But it my dad passed away when I was 15 from cancer. And that for me was kind of the turning point in my life where stuff started to go sideways. Stopped going to school, high school, started drinking, started using drugs, pretty much anything I could get my hands on. And it pretty much it spiraled pretty quickly when I was 15. I lived in the Sierra Nevada foothills in California, so country town, um, main street of Georgetown, of where I lived in California. There was like one stop sign and 5 bars. So that was our main street. There was no stoplight, no nothing. One high school. That's it. So everybody knew everybody. All of us, we all got in trouble together. We all, yeah, it was. It was definitely a unique environment to grow up as a closeted gay person in a very hillbilly area. So, but after my dad passed, I dropped out of school, never saw a day of my senior year of high school. Um, and it really just set my life on a different path. I mean, at one point, I tried to correct it by going into the military. Um, Lasted 7 weeks. So before they sent me back home on a medical discharge. Um, and I obviously I'd moved out of my mom's house and it just kind of downhill. I was living back in Sacramento, bouncing from house to house to wherever I could crash. Um, and it got to the point where needed change, my first change, and that was when I was 20. Uh, the boyfriend I was with at the time and we decided to get on a Greyhound bus from Sacramento with literally nothing but a backpack. We got off in San Diego, and we walked into a rescue mission where I was there for like 11 months. So, very non-working program, very religious program. I did not know that before I went into it. Um, but I mean, at least in the moment, it worked. Um, I stayed sober for I think 18 months during that time frame down in San Diego, doing NA and AA. Wasn't really working much of a program. I showed a lot of, like, tried to save face and say that I was, but I was. my roommate and I at the time, we were very quick to blame the program for not it just being a revolving door of newcomers. So that was our reason for not getting anything out of it, and so that led us one weekend to go get drinks at a bar. And from there, I was off and running. Didn't really stop again because that was got down there when I was 20. I was so it probably was when I was 22 that I went back out, I think. Um, and from there, I just started drinking, drugging again. Um, Drugs are the bigger part of my story, but I always have been close with AA because alcohol is what always started it for me. I mean, that weekend down in San Diego, it was that we went to a bar. That's what started it. And that's where I've always been able to relate better when it comes to the addiction side is the alcoholic side, because. Um, but anyways, it once that started, I quickly was running stuff into the ground. I mean, I'd try to get spouts of being dry for a little while. Um, would had different jobs. Surprised I didn't get killed 5 times over. At one time, I was a delivery truck driver for a heating and air conditioning company, driving a 36-foot long truck through the streets of San Diego, not sober, delivering stuff to construction sites. Um, and yeah, it that job came to an end. I mean, once they figured out what I was doing pretty quickly. But from there, I ended up leaving San Diego to come up to Seattle because of actually an apartment fire, unfortunately. Um, Another person that I was with at the time, they had fallen asleep in a bedroom of an apartment with a lit cigarette. He didn't get hurt. He was okay. I wasn't home at the time, but the apartment was a total loss. Um, I kind of took that as maybe that's the God shot. Get out of there. Try another do another geographic. Um, since that one didn't work, obviously. Um, while I lived in San Diego, my mom had moved from California up to Seattle. Um, I had I had reconnected with her when I first got sober in San Diego, and so I mean there was a little bit of conversation there. And I asked her if I could come up to Seattle and try to set stuff right. Um, and that's how I came up here. I came up here when I was 24 or 25. Um, and when I first came up here, I mean, I stayed with her and I had my little dry spouts here and there. But I would kind of disappear from her house for a couple of weeks and then I'd show back up once I ran out of places to stay or ran out of money. Um, Eventually, she kind of got sick of me doing that. And she said I needed to figure something out and find a solution. I had gone through several partners, boyfriends during that time. I had was doing whatever I needed to do to try to get money. At one point, I was selling drugs. I was living in a bathhouse. I mean, it was not a pretty picture that I was living in pre 2011. Um, but one of the last things before I got sober, I did was I tried to do another geographic with a boyfriend I was with at the time, and it took me to Phoenix. We thought, let's go there. We don't know anybody there. He had known about the program. I knew about the program. We're like, all right, let's go there. We'll try to get involved in the program over there. Um, I think we stayed sober for like 2 weeks out there. And we lasted in Phoenix for about 9 months. And then we came back to Seattle around Christmas time in 2010. Um, we He was up at his mom's house. I was over at my mom's house. And pretty quickly, both of our parents basically were like, you got to figure something out. This is not working, because we still weren't sober. And his mom was actually in recovery in AA. So it really didn't work there. Um, but it's kind of weird how I got sober this time was because he said that he wanted to break up with me and that he was going to go get sober and go into a transitional housing program. I told him, nope, you're not. I'm going with you. So, and that's actually how it worked. I mean, we walked into a meeting together. It was Quag, Monday nights in Queen Anne. And that was January 15th, 2011. Yeah, I mean, I went through a transitional housing program very shortly after that, which kind of helped get me, built a lot of structure in my life. I was doing meetings all the time. I wasn't working at the time. I mean, so I got involved. I found service work pretty early into my recovery. I think 2-3 months in, I became secretary of a meeting, and then shortly after that became a GSR of Live and Let Live up on Capitol Hill. And that was where, at least for me, it really started to get better, and I started to really, I feel like I was part of in recovery. Is my triangle was more evened out at that point. When through working with my first sponsor, I mean, it was great. I still talk to him, and he got me. We didn't stay working with each other very long though, but he knew how crazy I was in my head, and he at least had the patience to deal with me. I guess is the best way to say it. When I first came in, because I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground. I didn't know what I was going to do. But I always, I mean, he was always there for me to be able to answer. He quickly got me connected, though, or not quickly, but shortly got me connected with another person who was also had drugs and alcohol as part of their history. He didn't, and so he felt like somebody I could help, that I could relate to a little bit better, and that worked. He was my sponsor for 4 or 5 years. But it really it got better. It was a lot of work. There was ups and downs, especially in that beginning time. I had gone through a couple of other boyfriends, not healthy. I was always the one who wanted to fix people. And so I got people who badly needed some fixing, and I thought that was going to be my project. That's what I did before I got sober, and it was definitely not a healthy way to go. But I mean, there was a lot of work that happened in the beginning of my sobriety journey that really kind of helped shape me. Started going through some counseling, seeing some people, got rid of some toxic relationships. I am very much a people pleaser. I like to say yes to people. I don't like to say no. And so it was a lot for me to learn that word no, and to learn to be able to say yes to me. Um, but I mean, it was really a great turning point, though, because I was able to get some confidence in myself. I still have days where I have a lot of confidence that I need to work on. I still question myself a lot today, um, being almost 13 years sober, but I now can like talk through that better. Um, shortly, shortly after I got into that recovery or that transitional program, I was able to move out of there into my very first apartment that was in my name, because I unfortunately was still in one toxic relationship, but that one was able to end. And it was in that first apartment, shithole of an apartment down in Rainier Beach, but it was mine. um, that's when I was probably 18 months sober at that time. Not, I know it was less than 2 years, but that's when Chris and I met. So he had about like 8, 9 months. I had about 18 months or so. Um, and we kind of, yeah, we hit it off right away. Um, we, uh, we knew that we were both working on stuff in our own programs. We worked our own programs. Um, and I mean, I think one of the great things that's made our relationship last for so long and be so good was that we took the time to get to know each other as people. Um, I didn't rush into it, and our second date was with the U-Haul, and we moved in together. um, but I mean, we lived apart for, I mean, over a year before we even talked about like getting a place together and things like that. I mean, but it was, I think us having been able to grow our own lives during that time in our earlier sobriety was what really helped cement a good relationship with us together. Um, and I mean, not all days in life are sunshine, rainbows, and butterflies. I mean, we still have your trials and tribulations. We have our hard times that we go through. Um, and but the program's always been there to support us, and to support me, I should say. I'm going to talk about me. And the steps have always been there, the people have always been there. Um, the service work that I do has had a profound impact on my life. The chosen family that I've gotten from the service work is one that, I mean, I know that I can call on day or night, to help me out. Um, I've gone through quite a few different roles since I was that little GSR for Live and Let Live, alt DCM, DCM, web servant, webmaster, alternate treasurer for the area, and now the alternate chair for the area. Um, it's definitely been a road. I think probably one of the hardest times that him and Chris and I experienced together was we had a dog that passed away. That she was a hospice puppy, um, that passed away about a year ago. Yeah. about 2 years ago. Um, she was the love of our life. During that, when that happened, it I was this close to like just I've gone through plateaus in my recovery where I let service work be everything, and I didn't do anything else. That was kind of what was happening during that time. So I wasn't doing anything except for service, and so it was like, yeah. I mean, it. But I mean, I was able to kind of pull through on that. I was able to kind of be there, um, to walk through that. I still don't necessarily know how to this day. I did that sober. It. I mean, when my dad died, I was 15. I don't think I knew how to process that. I mean, so I don't think I ever really did till I was older. But I mean, being sober and her, even though we only had her for a very short time. I mean, those are our kids. We have At that time we had 3 dogs. Right now we have two. One I've had for 10 years. I got him pretty much right soon after I got sober. I mean, he's our little baby. So I mean, it wrecked us for a while. But I mean, we pulled through it. And I mean, it's been a great life. I mean, and I couldn't imagine what would have happened if I didn't walk into that room in January back then and went into Quag. I couldn't even picture where my life would be today. I mean, I probably would have been dead by now. I mean, the way I was going. I mean, there was the risky life that I was living, not just by my drinking and drugging, but just the other life choices that I was doing at the time. It's very slim chance that I would have been made it another 10 years to today, or 12 years to today. And I mean, those little choices, that temporary resentment that I got from him is what led me to the great life that I have today. Where I mean, there's not a thing I would change about it, even with the bumps that I have in it. I mean, because we walked through it. Even with Chris's little bump that he had, we walked through it. We walked through it together. But I also, like he said, I let him have his space and his experience. And that's kind of one of the things that the program also showed me is like, I can't do that for anybody else. I've got to let somebody get there themselves. But I can be there for them and I can love them. And that's one of the biggest things that the program has shown me is it's around that. Yes, I can still be that yes person. I can still help people, but I don't have to do it for them. And that's the big thing where the program has really drastically shifted or changed my life is I can still be that supportive person. I can still love people. I can love them till somebody can love themselves. Um, but I can let them have their experience, and um, be involved in a healthy way, where, yeah. I wish I'd put my phone up here because I had just for today up here, but it was perfect. It talked about serenity for today. Um, it's okay. It's okay. All right. I know I have it up there already. I just want to read it because I was reading it beforehand and it was perfect. So daily reflections, not just for today. Sorry. Serenity, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, coming from 12 and 12, page 106. As I continued to go to meetings and work the steps, something began to happen to me. I felt confused because I wasn't sure it was what I was feeling. And then I realized what I was experiencing was serenity. It was a good feeling, but where had it come from? Then I realized it had come as a result of these steps. The program may not always be easy to practice, but I had to acknowledge that my serenity had come to me after working these steps. As I work the steps in everything that I do, practicing these principles in all my affairs, now I find that I am awake to God, to others, and to myself. The spiritual awakening that I have enjoyed as a result of working these steps is the awareness that I am no longer alone. I think that pretty much sums up pretty well my experience with the program and everything that has happened. And let's see. Oh, perfect. I'm going to give 4 minutes back, and I'm going to say thank you for another 24 hours. So thank you, Austria, for asking.
Thank you.